Hi, I'm Lisa Scottoline. I'm at Borders in Rosemont, which is my Borders, and I thought I would take some time to show you about thrillers because right now we are in my turf, which is Thrillerland. I wanted to start with the beginning, which is Poe, mainly because he's having his 200th birthday. I know I'm looking 200 myself, but if you were going to say, arguably, who is the master of the modern thriller, I think it's this guy. Because to me, a thriller, apart from anything else, is a book that you cannot put down. And when you think about why, it's because you care so much about the main character and the situation he's in. You never stop thinking about Poe's main character, whether it's his beating heart or his guilty conscience or his fear he's going to be discovered or he's going to out himself. He's the guy who started it all. Happy birthday, Edgar Allan Poe. Let's go this way. This is probably, okay, this is like We Are Not Worthy. James Patterson, I read everything he writes. I'll tell you exactly why. First, I love this Alex Cross character because he is like what I write, every person. He's a smart, normal guy. He does not have superpowers. He just uses his brains to figure out what's going on. And the most important thing about Patterson for me is that it keeps the pace up. The chapters are short. There's no filler in it. It is a lean, raw story that moves and moves and moves. If you can't put it down, it's a thriller. This is the A+ category. Let's go this way. Now we see another one of my crushes, Arturo Perez Reverte. I have never met him, but I mean to someday in my dreams. That's what he looks like, super hot. He writes, I think it's a more intellectual thriller. He's Spanish, they're in translation. There's a more literary feeling to it. I wouldn't say his pacing is Patterson's pacing, but his characterization is wonderful. The thriller elements are certainly there, and it's really interesting to read a book about a situation that is a little bit unlike yours. If you want to see things set in Madrid, it's very cool. Down here, some more great people, The Godfather. I mean, let me make you an offer that you can't refuse. It's a wonderful novel, and I think it belongs very clearly in thrillers because even though there's not a gun to his head like there is in a Patterson book or a Ludlum book, that's sort of your conventional thriller. What is happening with Michael Corleone is that he is in emotional jeopardy. He begins the book, if you remember, a squeaky clean Dartmouth graduate, and he's going to turn into a mobster by the end. And the question is, what will happen to his immortal soul? That's what's at issue in The Godfather. There's lots of reasons why it rocks, and that's why it's here. J.D. Robb. I love J.D. Robb, especially the Eve Dallas series. If you like suspense, thriller, and what's interesting to me is that if you really think about this whole category of thrillers, the books you can't put down, there's something for everybody in it. If you like a little romance, she's your person. Also, if you like a little time travel, this J.D. Robb series is Lieutenant Eve Dallas, sent way into the future. And so she has a lot of moxie. She has a lot of girl power to her. But it's also set with like cool, like different wristwatches and gadgety stuff. But I really love that series, and I think it's really terrific. These are the noir guys, Raymond Chandler. Okay, I think it's really good to know something about American popular culture and American popular fiction's development. These are the Masters of Noir, and they're good reads. Going down here, we have Grisham. The Firm, I think, is one of the best books I ever read because I think it is the first book where you actually cannot put it down. And he sort of took the legal thriller to the next step because it wasn't just a courtroom thriller like it used to be in Anatomy of a Murder or the earlier Perry Mason remember Perry Mason and Earl Stanley Gardner always showed Perry Mason in a courtroom. Well, what Grisham did that was so innovative was take the guy out of the courtroom, show him as just a normal guy, Harvard Law School graduate, and he's going to join a firm, which is, by the way, the mafia in disguise. Really cannot put down The Firm, the perfect thriller. Sue Grafton, also terrific. A wonderful female sleuth in Kinsey Milhone who's a little bit of a non-expert expert. You know, if you think about the noir guys who are writing a PI who has skills, he can use a gun. He's kind of a hard-bitten character, former alcoholic. Sue Grafton comes along and she really started it for women in crime fiction. She really showed her Kinsey Milhone character has heart, kind of like carries everything around in a backpack, has an old model Volkswagen. She is an expert, but she isn't an intimidating expert, and those are wonderful books as well. Let's see. Now we come to someone I adore, Janet Evanovich. And this is what I'm saying about thrillers, which is that if there's something for everybody, there's room for laughs. If you read me, which you should, you know that I like to joke around. And I also like my characters to have a sense of humor. And I think it's a really interesting element in a thriller to have, I think of it as grace under pressure. Lots of, you know, when you're writing a novel where there's a gun at someone's head, like there is in a lot of my books, you need somebody who isn't going to go, poor me, because that's not interesting to the reader. You're going to need somebody that's maybe going to crack wise about it in some realistic way, though. Now, if you love to laugh, you're going to love Evanovich, because her thriller are so, her main sleuth, Stephanie Plum, is so inexpert. I mean, the last one, she drops the gun 4 times. She blows up cars wherever she goes. She's really incompetent, but she's completely endearing, and she has a grandmom she loves, because what you really want to, and it's something I think I do, with apologies, is that you want relationships. You're not going to care about the main character in any book unless they relate to other people. And so Janet Evanovich's books, my books, a lot of these books we're talking about are people set in relationships, in families, in love affairs, and you learn more about character that way, and you might get a sex scene if you're lucky. Michael Dibben, unfortunately passed away, but is a wonderful writer of books set in Italy. Nelson DeMille is one of my favorite authors. If you have not read him, you should. The Lion's Game is a thriller that will help you understand, believe it or not, U.S. relations with the Middle East. How's that? I mean, what do you want? If we come down here, you'll see some great practitioners of thrillers. Michael Connelly is terrific. He writes a wonderful character in Bosch, who's a former PI and who is a guy also wrestling with a conscience. I mean, it's really important characterization that he be a fully realized person. You know, to me, the definition of a great novel is just a fully realized story, well told. That's my touchstone when I'm writing. So I think that Connelly does that because his main character is a human being that gets in a situation, and though he is an expert, he isn't so much unlike you. You can relate to him. What else we got? Sandra Brown, another perfect example of somebody who, I love Ricochet, who writes with, she's next. I also like people, I admit to a bias, in people who've written for a long time. If you're thinking about writing, I'd really encourage you, because the real truest thing about writing is it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And I think that people who have written 10 books, 15 books, I've written 16, so a little self-serving. But the truth is, writing, like everything else in the world, improves with practice. Sandra Brown has probably written 30 books, and they get better and better and better. And she's always combining elements of a thriller with elements of romance, and that's not an easy thing to do, and she does it great, Ricochet in particular. Dan Brown. How could you not like Dan Brown? If you live in America, you have to read the Da Vinci Code, and you should, because what I think is great about the Da Vinci Code, besides the fact that he keeps the thriller element coming, is that more and more thrillers have become a way, I think of thrillers as kind of entertainment for smart people. And we're all so exposed in this culture to all manner of information. You can just look on Wikipedia if you want to find wrong stuff. But if you want to find right stuff, you look in Dan Brown. I personally like a novel, a thriller, where I learn something I didn't know before. Not only am I engaged in the story, but gee, I didn't realize that about The Last Supper. And that's what he does so, so well. I think it's why he's so popular, and that's why I read him. And I think that brings us to, my favorite of favorites, David Baldacci. You know, I love a thriller with a little bit of a political tinge. I used to read Ludlum, who's kind of an international kind of thriller. But I read Baldacci because I'm very interested in DC and how it kind of works, because I don't know. I mean, I live in Philadelphia and I never leave my house. So to see, how could you not love him? He looks like this. I mean, come on. We all like a little bit of eye candy. I'm not immune, but they're fantastic books. And if you're talking about, as I was before, something that teaches you something, if you want to learn about the Library of Congress, if you want to learn about the CIA, this guy, I don't know how he has these sources, but I think the books are really well researched. They ring true to me, and he is a superb writer, and also the characterizations are there. In the Camel Club, you see a group of people who fight together to figure stuff out and solve crimes, and at the same time, not forsake realism. That's a neat trick. Baldacci does it in spades. I would be terribly remiss if I didn't take a second to talk about British thrillers and mysteries, because like, they're sensational, and in some ways they're different. Because as I said to you, thrillers are books you can't put down, but there isn't, some have a gun to somebody's head. Think Patterson, think Ludlum, think Baldacci, and some are, you know, more into the emotional jeopardy, a big characterization, a lot of background. That to me, and wonderfully crafted sentences always. I mean, you don't get in Borders unless your sentences are there, right? So I think about P.D. James, who's one of my favorite authors, and also meets my qualification of has been writing books for a long, long time. I think she's like a knight or a dame. I guess she's a dame. I'm a dame too. But anyway, she writes really thoughtful books, and the core of her books is always about justice, good and evil. What is just? The characterization is always believable, and these sort of ethical, moral, legal questions are there, but not in your face there. They never take over the story. I love her. Another person, of course, we all love is John Mccrae. If you have not read him lately, you should, because I think, again, although Smiley is an operative, you know, he's clearly an expert sleuth. The characterization of Smiley over time is so rich and so full that you like watching, seeing how he changes, seeing how he'll deal with the different moral and ethical dilemmas he has. And I think Mccrae is somebody who just keeps getting better and better and better. So I love him. And when you think about more newer people, this is somebody, I'm going to say her name is Denise Mina, but I don't know, I haven't met her. These aren't people I know, these are just people I read, just like you. I think she's terrific. She actually is a journalist main character. She's a woman, and what's interesting about her is, you know how like a lot of the main characters in books sometimes, all the women are hot, they're all thin, they never wrinkle, you know. Her character is actually overweight. Oh, God forbid. You know, in the U.S. we would shoot her, but here, no, I'm kidding. But, you know, her main character, she can't get a date. She doesn't think her hair is up to snuff. She kind of is having a hard time with her love life. But she is a very impassioned journalist who is interested, as journalists are, in finding the truth. And so every adventure or misadventure that comes her way, she's really working hard using all of her insights into the human condition and her resources, again, like what I think I do, an ordinary person in extraordinary circumstances. Denise Mina, any one of them. I love Field of Blood too. And I love to read all manner of nonfiction. I read like Malcolm Gladwell and all that stuff. But I like to read nonfiction that I can't put down. Because if you remember, the definition of thriller is book you can't put down. I said, I want to show these people the hot zone. This is an amazing book. And it's a really good lesson in how it doesn't have to be fiction to hold your attention and keep you riveted and reading through the night. This is a book about the spread of Ebola. And this guy, Richard Preston, I just love this book. I read this book from time to time just to see, do I care about Ebola? No. Am I interested, though, in how a skilled writer builds suspense, tells you bits of the story in drips and drabs so that you're held the whole time to know what's going to happen? You can't put it down? This does it. Another book that does it is in nonfiction is The Perfect Storm, which I'm hoping is around here somewhere. Let me come this way. I think I saw it here. Okay, also like another hot author. This is the hot author tour. You thought it was the thriller tour. You probably heard about this book because they also made a movie with George Clooney, who is also hot. This is, you know, this incredible story. But when I read these books, and when you read it, let me suggest this to you. Don't read it just for the story of what happened to a group of fishermen who left Gloucester, Mass. one day and got lost at sea. Because what you're reading for when you read any of these wonderful books is to see how is the story told. And what is very interesting about this is, first off, he can keep the suspense even when you know these guys are going to die. I mean, I'm not giving anything away. They're going to die. I think they even tell you on the back of the book. But what he does, which is so interesting, and a movie like, for example, like The Fugitive does this too, that the jeopardy is rolling. So just when you're worried about these guys from the beginning, right? You're worried about the fishermen, and then it looks like they're going to see the wave from hell, right? And then they're going to die, while someone comes in next to try to save them. And so the whole first half of the book, you're worried about the fishermen, and the whole second half of the book, you're worried about these incredible Navy SEALs who does not love a Navy SEAL? Is there a woman whose heart beats? Anyway, And they're going to come and they're going to save these people. They're going to risk their lives to save people. And Sebastian Junger, I think that's how he says his name, is a smart enough guy to tell you a little bit about them too. And so you're worried about them. You are worried every page of The Perfect Storm. And that's what thrillers are all about, whether they're nonfiction, whether they're fiction, whether they're political, whether they're romance, whether they're me and they have a little side order of basil. The bottom line is, it's a book you can't put down. So thank you very much. I'm Lisa Scottoline for Borders.